Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Kayode Okikelu here in Lagos. Tonight, we'll hear from the Imo State government as it tells us its own side of the story on what exactly transpired with the arrest and release of Mr. Uche Nwosu, a governorship candidate in Imo State and the son-in-law of former Governor Rochas Okorocha. Well, accusing fingers being pointed at the state governor by Senator Okorocha and Mr. Nwosu, and we'll hear the governor's response tonight on the program. But first, let's tell you about today's meeting between Nigeria's #1 citizen, President Muhammadu Buhari, and the former #1 citizen, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, at the State House. Although it is uncertain what the visit, which is not the first, entails, it may not be unconnected with the former president's role as ECOWAS chief mediator to Mali. President Buhari, alongside other African leaders, had recently voiced concerns over democratic threats which are posed by the difficult transitions in Mali and Guinea, countries that have been suspended from the ECOWAS. Well, both men had earlier met in October behind closed doors, after which former President Jonathan left without speaking to State House correspondents. Well, they also met in May at the State House, where the president received briefing on the political crisis in Mali after last year's coup. Well, meanwhile, President Buhari is not backing down on his mission to recover all the Niger Delta developmental funds that have been squandered since 2001, with a promise that those responsible will be prosecuted. But while virtually inaugurating a hostel complex at the University of Uyo in Akwa Ibom State, the president added that he has directed that all viable projects which have been abandoned in the region be immediately revived and completed. Well, the president had ordered a forensic audit of a commission in October 2019, and 2 years after, the report was submitted to the president by the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Senator Godswill Akpabio, 3 months ago. Now, the details of the audit is still being kept under wraps, while there continues to be a clamor for the president to make the document public. But while we wait, let's give you an update on what some refer to as the super legislation. I'm talking about the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Well, the National Assembly is observing its end-of-the-year recess quite all right, but questions about the fate of the bill after the president withheld his assent are still very much with us. And some of these questions were put to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, who was in Lagos to commission projects in his Surulere 1 constituency. Well, his response was an appeal to Nigerians to be patient with the National Assembly, saying the recess period will enable them consult with their constituencies on the amended act and ponder on the contentious clauses before the National Assembly takes its decision.
Many of us are reformers, and I thought, one way to reform the system and to make it more accountable to the people who represent is for them to have a voice and a say in who determines who represents them, as opposed to 1, 2, 3 people sitting within the 4 corners of a wall and writing names. That's what that amendment was about. But again, there's a process. The president, as in his wisdom, and I believe he did it with all good intention, based on advice that he got. He weighed everything carefully. The president has always been a man who, because of his popularity, enjoyed direct primaries. He liked it. But I guess maybe times are different. He listened to people who he has employed to advise him, and it appears that they advised him against that amendment. So there's a process, and when we come back, like I said, to the House, we will determine if those amendments or if those reasons sit down well with the National Assembly, in which case we will, at that point, consider removing that clause and passing the bill, so that we do not throw away the baby with the bathwater. But then it's not my decision to make. It's a decision of the whole National Assembly. If they determine that the reasons are not good enough, then there's a process, as prescribed by the Constitution as well. Which way it's going to the sword is going to fall, I have no idea until that time.
Now, there's something else which the lawmakers have to factor into the next line of action before any decision is made. Apparently, there are some cross-referencing errors as well as conflicting provisions and even grammatical errors in that amendment bill. Now, these errors, 11 of them, were identified by a coalition of civil society organizations led by Yaga Africa. And according to its executive director, Mr. Samson Itodo, these errors, if not corrected, could further complicate things. That's if the National Assembly sends it back to the president for assent. So, another area to focus on, definitely. But while the non-signing of this bill was a low point in the year for a lot of people, President Buhari's administration has been given an account of its performance in other areas in this outgoing year. And the Minister of Information and Culture, Mr. Lai Mohammed, scored the government quite high, saying that tremendous progress has been made across different sectors. He was speaking during a meeting with the press in Lagos.
This administration, in spite of daunting challenges, made tremendous progress in 2021 in fighting insecurity, in growing the economy, in reforming the health sector to spur more investments, embracing world-class infrastructure, providing social safety net for the poor and most vulnerable in society, and also taking advantage of the huge opportunities offered by the information and communication technology sector. Success is not measured by the number of challenges you face, but by how you tackle the challenges. This is what the administration has demonstrated by tackling insecurity headlong, while also growing and diversifying the economy. We want to most sincerely thank all Nigerians for their support and perseverance. We want to reassure the nation that President Muhammadu Buhari is determined to leave a legacy of a safe, secure, and prosperous nation. We urge Nigerians not to relent in supporting our security forces, who continue to make sacrifices to keep our country safe.
So, I mean, looking at the calendar, this shall be the second to the last full-year review of the Buhari administration's performance. In fact, the president has said that he is looking forward to the end of his tenure in 2023. Then arises the usual question of succession. Well, some leaders from the Southeast are making a case for the region, saying that they have a right to take a shot at the presidency as they understand and know Nigeria better. And one of those making the case is Governor Okezie Ikpeazu of Abia State, who spoke to State House correspondents after meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari in the presidential villa. Although he says he has no intention to run, he believes the Igbos are pan-Nigerians, and they're not afraid to carve out business opportunities even in notorious places like the Sambisa forest.
I am not interested in the presidency. I am very busy as governor, and thinking about what I will become now will amount to shortchanging my people. I think that the Southeasterners have a right to take a shot at the presidency of Nigeria. And I dare say that our qualification starts from the fact that we understand and know Nigeria better than any other set of Nigerians. I dare say, this is my opinion, because we go everywhere, we are everywhere, and we invest everywhere. We are pan-Nigerian people. Today, a lot of people, on a lighter note, are afraid of Sambisa. But for the Igbo man, Sambisa is a business opportunity. The political parties need to be sensitive to the feelings of the various contending groups, because politics should not be a winner-take-all thing. So if we have this at the back of our mind, my thinking is that we will arrive at the fact that there is a geopolitical zone that has been clamoring and yearning for an opportunity to lead. And we should be gracious and magnanimous enough to give consideration to such yearnings and aspirations.
So let's unpack our big issue for tonight, which incidentally took place in a southeastern state. It is said that there are at least always two sides to every story. And a few days ago, we spoke with the former governor of Imo State, Senator Uche, on the program over the arrest of his political protege, Mr. Uche Nwosu, an incident which has sort of rekindled the feud between Governor Hope Uzodinma and his predecessor, Senator Okorocha. And there's still questions unanswered about that incident. And tonight, we seek to get those answers. We're joined on the program by Mr. Daniel Bwala, who is a legal practitioner. Mr. Bwala was nominated by the Imo State government to speak on behalf of the governor. He joins us from our Abuja studio. And also next to him is the man in the eye of a storm, Mr. Uche Nwosu, former Imo governorship candidate. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the program tonight. Let me begin with Mr. Bwala, because we've heard the account of Mr. Nwosu. I mean, he granted an interview to the press where he chronicled his side of the story, and it's only fair to get the governor's account. So, can you tell us, Mr. Bwala, to what extent was the governor, his aides, or anyone affiliated to the Imo State government involved in Mr. Nwosu's arrest?
Well, Kayode, thank you for having me. And I want to begin by extending my condolences to Uche Nwosu over the loss of his mother and my best wishes to his family. For the purposes of tonight, I'm glad that I'm being introduced as one who is nominated by the government of Imo, but I'm speaking as a party person, as a member of APC who is particularly concerned about the way things are going in Imo. And we feel that at a time when we need to do more to advertise the party in the southeast, we are seeing some of these melodramatic events, which is demarcating the party, as it were. Now, with respect to the facting issue, police will be in a better position to give information regarding facts that they are investigating, but ours will be to analyze what the facts that have come to the public space, either by way of reportage or by way of observance, and then sometimes by way of rebuttal. When you see facts coming together and they are contradicting each other, then it gives you the impetus to give your own perspective of the matter. And that is why I want to begin by saying that it appears from the testimony of Senator Okorocha and the testimony of Mr. Uche, you would see that there are inconsistencies. And I will begin. I followed the interview from your own station. And I think that in the course of interviewing the governor, you had also put some questions to him as regarding the contradictory statement on both sides. Let's start from the beginning. One, the impression that was given at the beginning was that Uche Nwosu was kidnapped. That was what went viral at the beginning. And later on the account of Uche Nwosu, he identified those who came and arrested him as policemen. So where did the first information that he was abducted come from? That amounts to disinformation. Secondly, at the beginning, the impression that was created to the media and the Nigerian people was that the police officers went into the church and started firing sporadically and then arrested Uche Nwosu. But facts that later emerged suggested that the service had in fact ended and that Uche Nwosu was arrested not inside the church building, although in the church compound. Again, that settles the issue of disinformation. And then if somebody is alleging, for example, that there was a gunshot in the church at a time when we have information technology, mobile devices where people can record, you recall that when this event happened, it went everywhere. But what you will not see, because it does not exist, was a video showing that the police officers entered the church and in fact shot sporadically. That would have been evidence of bullets and all that. Then thirdly, there was also the issue that he was taking the account of Uche Nwosu. Uche Nwosu told you that he thinks that the Abuja is not aware and he was abducted and taken. But in the account of his father-in-law, the father-in-law testified that, in fact, the commissioner of police told him that Uche Nwosu was arrested by the police on the orders of Abuja. Thirdly, Uche Nwosu, in his own testimony, also said that while he was being whisked away to Enugu from where he was going to be flown to Abuja, being that he's somebody who understands Hausa, he heard how that a police officer that was with him was answering a call wherein the police officer was responding to an identified police officer to the extent that Uche Nwosu identified as the CSO of the governor, where the man was asking about the whereabouts of Uche Nwosu, and he said he is with us. But remember, on the account of the governor, he said that that same alleged police officer was the one that led the operations and led to the arrest. So a man who led operation and led to the arrest cannot, after a few minutes, be asking the people he sent with the abducted, so to speak, person, where is the whereabouts of the person. When you bring all of these facts together, the question you ask yourself is, why is proper information not communicated to the public space? As someone like me, I am pushing the question further. Why are we demarketing APC in Imo that we are trusting God will be the bastion of the marketability of the party in the entire Southeast? You see, before now, there was relative peace in Imo until after the election, where Governor Rochas Okorocha did not get his wishes, attained. And he's not the only former governor that didn't get his wish of who succeeded him. But in all the other places where these things happen, they accept their fate in good faith. Some grudgingly walk away. Some decided to stay back, build the party together, and see how they push from there. Okay. Secondly, the opposition in the state is PDP, but you cannot even hear Ihedioha pushing or undermining government in Imo. Every time you hear of crisis, it always has to do with Governor Rochas Okorocha against the government of the state. Okay, that is Mr. the age-long cliche that people used to say, you cannot fight government. Now, in the course of the interview, Mr. Bola, because in their various interviews, they lay allegations to the fact that the city, Imo State, is being misgoverned. But
okay, Mr. Bola, just a moment. I see that your earpiece is off, so you could just reattach that, because it appears that you will not be able to hear me even if I put any questions through. But let me just clear this. I mean, because from the beginning, it was made clear that you were nominated by the government, the Imo State government, to speak on its behalf and to speak on the interest of the government. And just to make that clear, that your views represent the views of the Imo State government. Am I right?
If you can hear me, I'm so sorry I did not hear what you just said. I heard from a loudspeaker, you said nominated, and the rest of the items I didn't hear. So I don't know if I just wanted to fix. Maybe you can talk to Uche and then they revert back to me when they fix that. Because I would like to respond to the question you are putting.
Oh, certainly. So let me take this to Mr. Uche Nwosu and get that resolved. Now, Mr. Nwosu, you've given your account, but Mr. Boala is picking holes in your account. He talks about, the manner in which that arrest was carried out, where it was carried out, saying that, well, it was not right in the middle of service. That yes, it was in a church premises, but the service was over. And he picked some other holes. So if you can respond to that, because it's important to understand the timeline of the events, the shots that were fired, who fired the shots, in what manner were you arrested?
I want to accept the condolences from my friend who is here, who has condoled me for the death of my mom. I also want to thank God before I start that I'm alive, to be in this studio today, to respond to questions and narrate my ordeal. I am surprised that somebody who is not inside the church, or who is not part of the church, or who is not a member, or even near the church, could give account of what happened in the church. Let me tell you the truth. What we are talking about is life. It's not about party or about Owele Rochas Okorocha not having his candidate as a governor or not. We're talking about life. And he talked about arrest. And I believe very much well that he's a lawyer. And I don't know whether arrest can be done with hooded policemen with masks. I want to know whether it has become a law that you abduct somebody without a letter of invitation or without inviting the person. The shooting happened inside the church. I'm talking as somebody who was abducted inside right when the service was going on. I'm very much happy that the parish priest and All members of the church were there when it happened. So it's just like one voice talking against hundreds and thousands of voices inside the church. These people came from government house, identified that they are from the government house. They have their vehicles. Some of their vehicles were identified as the vehicle that followed the governor in his entourage. And these people, faces were covered. You can only see their eyes. But I'm happy that some of my PAs identified some of them with their voice. And they started shooting while the service. We are talking about life. We are talking about somebody who just escaped from death. Where I went to bury my mom, where I went to honor my mom inside the church, while the church service was going on, these people came, started shooting, dragged me like a criminal from the church, and shot from the church, continued their shooting until they would drag me inside the vehicle without invitation, without any call from the CP, without any call from the IG. And the people that came were off mask. Their faces were not, you can only see their eyes. Is that how to arrest? If you're talking about arrest, I think, my friend, what happened was not arrest. It was abduction. And they took me all the way. Stopped on the way. The vehicle they took me with was a white van, because one of my boys identified the number plate of the van. They now put me inside another vehicle, which is Ford Jeep, and they drove straight to Owerri. And three of these vehicles went straight into the government house. And the one that took me with those 400 security operatives that works with Governor Hope Uzodinma took me all the way to Enugu. And I was asking them, what have I done? What have I done? These men were busy telling me that if you don't keep quiet, we are going to deal with you. And with one of their legs on my head, treated like a common criminal, and they took me to Enugu, and we stayed at the airport for 1 hour, 30 minutes.
Right.
If it was arrest, I shouldn't waste up to 1 hour, 30 minutes at Enugu. It was abduction because their plan changed. And you know that is a word of social media. The thing leaked. Why wouldn't the people in the church believe that it was abduction when they came with no invitation letter, when they came with nothing to identify that they are from IG?
Okay.
Is that how to arrest somebody?
Just a few things to clear.
Can you enter inside the church and arrest? Can you enter inside the mosque and arrest?
Just a few things to clear, Mr. Nwosu.
So this is not
before I take this back to Mr. Bwala.
Matter of being.
If you can hear me, Mr. Nwosu, just quickly. Do you remember what was going on in the service at the time of your arrest? Was it perhaps a hymn? Was it some songs going on? What exactly was going on so we can establish if indeed, when indeed this happened? Do you remember?
Parish priest just came down and was telling all those that are supposed to do Thanksgiving. In fact, he mentioned Umuokwe, mentioned Omunam. These are the villages that we are supposed to do Thanksgiving. And he said, after Omunam, Umuokwe, after Umuokwe, Uboji village. Then after Uboji, the Nwosu family will come up. The late Jemima Nwosu family will now come for their own Thanksgiving. It was when this Omunam community, Omunam village, were coming that these men entered inside church and started shooting. I don't know if my friend that is narrating on behalf of Imo State government, I don't know, he has never been to the scene, and I believe that the IG who have sent his men to Owerri, I don't even know where he got the information, that the information reaching him, that means the state government has concluded their investigation. When IG is still doing his, you can see the narrative that it is not about the police now, is about the state government saying that the information and the investigation they have conducted. Are you police? Are you now the IG? Are you now conducting investigation yourself?
So quickly, before we get Mr.
This is why I said that the state government knows about my abduction.
Okay, quickly. So, what are the things you saw? Mr. Bwala, just a moment. You'll get to respond, but I want you to do this well-rounded. So, what are the things you saw, Mr. Nwosu, quickly, that made you allege that the state government is responsible for this arrest or abduction, as you have referenced it?
One, on my way from Owerri to Enugu, I was sitting at the back with two of these policemen sitting by my side, by my left and right side. And the person in the front was busy communicating with Shaba, the CSO to the governor of Imo State. And I was looking at his phone, and I challenged the police command to get the phone numbers of those people that took me, and then go through their phone log. I saw it. I saw SP Shaba on that phone.
And who is this?
And he was communicating. I was telling him in Hausa. He did not know I speak Hausa.
Do you know this individual? Mr. Nwosu, so who is this individual that you referenced, Mr. Shaba?
The Shaba is the CSO to the governor of Imo State.
Okay, let's ask Mr. Bwala.
And
now.
the vehicles that came for this operation, all these vehicles were vehicles in the convoy of the governor. In fact, one of them was a military. I think it's right time that the chief of army staff, chief of naval staff, and chief of air staff withdraw those vehicles from this governor, because
Mr. Nwosu,
how
just
can
a moment.
a military vehicle with a military vehicle with hoarded men come to a church, discredit the church, sacrilege, and took somebody
Nwosu,
from the church?
Okay, so we need to deal with this issue so we don't lose sight of the whole conversation. So let's take this to Mr. Bwala. And I just earlier on established that you were indeed nominated by the state government, this government house, to speak in the interest of the governor, just to establish that to our viewers so they understand where you're coming from. So let's deal with some of the issues that he raised. He questions your account on the one hand. He also references some of the things he saw that made him think that the governor is responsible for this arrest. How do you respond?
So let me quickly respond by saying that I don't have to physically be in Imo. First of all, I've been to Imo a couple of times. Imo is a state in Nigeria that is not restricted to only the Imo lies, one. And number two, at a party level, there are one or two party activities that took me to Imo State. And I saw firsthand even some of the roads that was alleged to have been constructed by the governor that collapsed. But that is by the side. A quick response to him. He asked, what is the premise of my conclusion? One, facts available in the public space. They have put in video. There have been reports on what happened. Now, so as a lawyer, my premise is that by my discipline as a lawyer, I have prosecuted, I have defended. And there are questions that agitate the mind of a lawyer each time fact is brought to the fore when you want to elicit information, especially through cross-examination. So the questions that come to my mind is, number one, if you allege that event occurred inside the church, you rightly ask him to explain the particular time and stage in the service when the police entered. And I would assume that that program of that day was a special day because it appears all the program was revolved around him. So ordinarily, there should be a video coverage of that day. And if there was a video coverage between when they made the allegation to today, that would have been out in the media space or supplied to the people in the media houses. Now, number two, these days of modern technology, when you go to public event like a service like that one, there are people in church that will use their phones to cover events. And if police ever come in, there must be one or two persons that will be able to cover that because they want to bring that to the fore. Till this very moment, there has never been any publication of that activity inside the church. So as a lawyer, I begin to question, and if I can't get those information, I begin to put probative value to the testimony of that individual. But this issue, this is not even the facting issue. The issue is, does the law enforcement and police have power to arrest when there is a reasonable belief that the person has committed a crime, is about to commit a crime, or intends to commit a crime? We're looking at the Administration of Criminal Justice Act. Now, let me give you the premise. Number one, they said that when the law enforcement, the joint operations began their operation to bring out criminal elements in their various cells and camps, they came across individuals that were arrested, some from Imo and some from Delta, and through questioning, they got facts from them that further implicated others. And on this occasion, it implicated Uche Nwosu from the facts available in the media space. And then based upon which, they now begin to probe further, going into the homes of individuals that were involved in this criminal carnage. And the ringleader of one of those criminal elements, in his house, the picture was seen of him and Uche Nwosu. And he was alleged, alleged to have testified that Uche Nwosu is funding them to procure AK-47 and all of that. These are facts that police will eventually bring. I'm never making a conclusion on that. Okay. But in law, once these type of facts come to the fore, there is a reasonable belief by law enforcement that there is a commission of a crime or commission of a crime is afoot, which
Okay,
will now
Mr.
give
Bwala,
the premise for the police to then either invite or to arrest the person.
I really hate to cut you short at this time, but we need to go on a break. We have to do this, but not to worry. You'll land on that point you were making, and then we'll get Mr. Nwosu to respond to these issues and so much more. A lot of questions we need to get answers to, and we'll do that in a moment. Please stay with us. You're welcome back. So let's continue our conversation with Mr. Daniel Bwala, legal practitioner who's speaking in the interest of the Imo State government, and Mr. Uche Nwosu, former Imo governorship candidate. He's also the son-in-law to former governor of the state, Senator Rochas Okorocha. Gentlemen, thank you for staying with us on the program. So, Mr. Bwala, let me allow you land on that point you were making. You referenced a certain suspect that was arrested and allegedly confessed. So if you can land on that, and then we can take this conversation forward.
So one, like I was saying, with respect, if you compartmentalize the discussion, number one, with the issue of arrest, whether his arrest was legal, because he built a heavy weather around there, and he said that it is not a proper arrest because they were hooded, and he said it is not proper arrest because when they took him to Enugu, they stayed for 1 hour. All of that run foul of the provisions of the law. And I told you that where there is a reasonable ground formed to believe that somebody has committed a crime, in this case, it's a product of intelligence. Our operation was carried out, individuals were arrested, and information were elicited from them, some of which then relate to Uche Nwosu. It is only reasonable that law enforcement will do what they have to do. And when he said he survived, he could have died and all that, if you look at him, he looks fresh. Not even a pimples was touched throughout this ordeal. People who mean to kill you would have hurt you. All these gunshot that they talked about in the church, did you hear anybody was killed, injured, or wounded? None. So what I have been saying is that there is a disinformation that is being pushed by Governor Rochas Okorocha to try to give the impression that the government of Imo State is illegitimate, because he has never in the first place believed in the legitimacy of the government in the first place. Till tomorrow morning, in your last interview with you, your interview with him, he told you that Uche Nwosu won the election. He still did not believe that at the poll, Uche Nwosu did not win. Uche Nwosu went to court. There was a decision up to the final court. He still does not believe it. This is the same individuals who a panel of inquiry that was formed when he was called upon to come and answer for the alleged assets that they say he confiscated to himself. Rule of law would have demanded that he goes. He refused to go. This is the same individual when an order was made that that palm, whatever garden, should be sealed. He went in the company of his aides, and they went and tried to remove it against the law enforcement. This is the same individual, if you recall, when the task force, during the time of Ihedioba also, was generated to go and recover those assets. People that were sympathetic to him beat the head of the task force to blood. And it was reported that Governor Rochas Okorocha said that anybody who dares him will get similar treatment. Is that the rule of law? All I'm saying is that APC in Imo should rally support. Governor Rochas Okorocha should support the government in ensuring that APC agenda is fulfilled in that state. The idea that a government has been formed and you still do not believe in the legitimacy of the government, and allegedly you are undermining the government, can never stand anywhere in any part of the country. This is the point I'm saying. And,
Okay.
and at a party level, remember, during the build-up to the election when Uche Nwosu lost the ticket to Hope Uzodimma, if you recall in Imo, the day President Buhari went to raise the hand of the candidate of APC, there were two candidates on the altar, which was a big slap in the face of the president. But the president managed the situation. He told the people, vote your conscience, and he left. Until today, there is an allegation that Governor Rochas Okorocha is doing anti-party in that state. So from the party standpoint, I don't think this is the right thing to do. You look around Nigeria, there are plenty godfathers that did not get to put their successors in government. He was running the state like in a clannish way, in a nepotistic, anachronistic way. If you recall, he was governor, Uche Nwosu was chief of staff, Uche Nwosu at one time was commissioner for land, his sister was SA domestic, commissioner on happiness and fulfillment, one of his sisters was the one supplying food in the government house, the other one was deputy chief of staff, all kinds. And that is not an inclusive government. That was when APC's image and popularity started waning down.
Well,
When
Mr. Boala,
Hope
it's
Uzodinma
only
came,
fair
see the
now to
IPOB.
ask...
Which part of East that the IPOB is not fighting?
It's only fair now to ask Mr. Nwosu to respond to some of the points you have made. You still have a few outstanding questions to answer, but on that point you have made regarding, the administration of former Governor Rocha Sokorocha, I'd like Mr. Nwosu to respond, then we can clear the air on some of the other issues.
I want to come in here straight. Let me shock the entire world that one of these policemen from Government House forgot, when this process was going on, forgot his cap right inside the church. And the vicar of that church picked some pellets of bullet inside the church. Again, these boys that my friend just mentioned, that Uche Nwosu, they mentioned Uche Nwosu's name. These boys are appointee of Hope Uzodinma, and they are under the salaried payroll of Hope Uzodinma. One of them, who mentioned my name, was invited by the police authority, the IG, and they confessed that at no time was I involved in their activities. And they also confessed that the Shaba, who is the CSO to Governor Hope Uzodinma, invited the man that brought them from Asaba, as he mentioned, and they took them to a hotel called Rockview near Government House. It was inside that hotel that they interviewed and interrogated this young man and told him to mention my name so that they can allow him to go. But with their lies, the guy mentioned my name and they still rearrested him. So when you look at it and you look at the picture that was on the social media of the young man when he has blood on him and the young man when he was wearing clean clothes, you find out that it's all concussion in order to malign my image. That's on the other one. Another thing I want my friend to know very well is that when you come to the issue of arrest, whether it be arrest of any kind, there must be an invitation letter. There must be, if you invite somebody and the person refuses to come, then you talk about warrant of arrest. But at this time, nothing like that happened. And you talk about, keep mentioning Owele Rocha Sokorocha. We're not talking about Rocha Sokorocha here. You are diverting the attention of the people to whether Rocha Sokorocha was former governor, whether Rocha Sokorocha accepted the incumbent governor. Remember that when Hope Uzodinma was declared governor, Owele Rocha Sokorocha was right there at the inauguration venue, and Owele Rocha Sokorocha supported him, was there, and we supported him, and we said we are going to support him. But let me shock you. Hope Uzodinma, from the beginning, never liked anything about Rocha Sokorocha. He mentioned the issue of Rocha Sokorocha family. I was commissioner for land, I was chief of staff, and the only person in the Rocha Sokorocha family who is the SA domestic was his sister. And that's why I said he doesn't have fat. There was no Rocha Sokorocha family that one was deputy chief of staff, one was commissioner, one was this, one was supplying food. It's just fallacy because he's not there. He doesn't have the fat. The problem is not issue of party. We don't divide the attention going towards party. We are talking about life. We are talking about discretion of God's altar. We are talking about the sacrilege that happened inside the church. We are talking about arresting somebody inside the church. And we are talking about a governor using security apparatus under him to intimidate, harm, kill, even indigent. It's not about party. I'm an APC member. Have you heard me speak ill against Hope all this while? But the matter here now is not about party. It is not about Hope becoming the governor or not. It's about the lives of individuals. Okay, this is me, Uche Nwosu, because it is me. What about if it is somebody who does not have anybody to talk for him, that is hooded, that is kidnapped by hooded policemen, and nothing happens? It would have been, is an unknown gunman. Because the video went viral, because nobody knows, there is nothing to identify these people, that they are police from the police headquarters or even from commissioner of police. That is why the video went viral, that it was an unknown gunman. Okay. Because this is what has been happening in the state. And the issue of there is no shooting in the church, one of them actually forgot his cap inside the church. Right. And the priest of the church actually, in his statement, provided the cap, and then also provided some of the place of the bullet that was inside the church. So my friend here is acting or representing the governor, but he doesn't have facts.
Well, Mr. Nwosu, let me get your answer to this question.
I was the victim.
So let me get your answer to this question, this allegation that Mr. Bwala made about your picture with one of the suspects found. Are you aware of that? Did you take any picture with any of the suspects that he mentioned?
I've never seen any picture with any suspect, and I've never taken any picture with any suspect. All these are arrangements within the government house to malign my image. But thank God that the IG of police, who I trust very, very well, will bring justice to those who think that because they are in power, they can use the security apparatus attached to them to commit havoc, to maim, and to also destroy human life. I'm happy that the IG is on it, and I'm happy that at the end of the day, IG will come out with a clean result on what has happened. Although my friend here said that from all the information available to the governor and from all their investigation, that means they have concluded their investigation, even when the IG is still doing his investigation.
Well, Mr. Nwosu, let's talk about that.
They are all lies. But
let's talk about your experience.
There are other witnesses within the church and outside the church.
So let's talk about your experience in Abuja with the IGP. You've touched on it a little bit, but how was it resolved? Are you off the hook now? Are you meant to go back to the police perhaps at a later date? Is this being taken to court? How was this resolved with the IGP?
No, the IGP is conducting an investigation, one, on the manner of which these people invaded the church, the hooded policemen. Two, the manner which they lied to the IG. They actually lied, the state government actually lied to the IG. Even the Commissioner for Information, Imo State Commissioner for Information, I will call him Commissioner for Disinformation, said on the TV that I was invited several times and I refused to come. You can see that there was no invitation, there was no call, I was never invited, and they sent police to arrest me. So on the issue of this matter, yes, I'm happy that IG is investigating it. So I'm waiting for the Inspector General of Police to finish his investigation. And then by the end of the investigation, we'll now know the culprit that is doing all this that you see happening in Imo State. At the end of the day, by God's willing, you will see that most of these things that happen in Imo State are actually the man in power there that is causing this problem.
Okay, gentlemen, I would like that we be mindful of our words. I mean, to not make this personal. We'll speak to the facts and ensure that our viewers get the meat of the matter. So, Mr. Bwala, two questions I'd like you to clear out. First, in terms of, modus operandi of the police in making arrests, because this is something a lot of people have questioned. Is that standard operational procedure for the police in conducting arrests? You're a legal practitioner, so you know what the law says. I mean, the rules guiding police. Is this how an arrest is meant to be conducted?
Well, from the legal standpoint and looking at the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, the police can arrest with or without warrant depending on the exigency of the case. So, for example, arrest with warrant if the person is not about to commit a crime. You obtain a warrant for his arrest. Arrest can be also conducted without a warrant if you reasonably believe that the person is about to commit a crime or he is, in fact, committing a crime. And there are other exceptions in law for which you can do such arrest. Now, the arrest they made in the church premises, is it right? It may not be the standard procedure. Probably you could have waited until when he leaves that premises. But again, police will know best whether there was a plan for him even to escape from there, and that was the only time they could get him. Probably they made effort to arrest him in his residence, and the rest they couldn't find him. The only place they could find is the church. So, and some of these details is only police that can give you those answers. But in terms of whether police can arrest with or without warrant, I just stated those facts to you. Look, Kayode, let us just be fair to Nigerians and give facts to Nigeria to decide. The real problem, there are things we do not know, matters of detailed investigation which will come. But there are issues, there are things that we do know. There was a panel that was set up by Governor Ihe Dioha, a PDP governor, to look at the circumstances that led to the confiscation of assets of those states. That panel report indicted Rocha Sokorocha. When Hope Uzodinma came to power, it was now incumbent on him either to implement the panel or not. You remember there were even legal issues with that, whether it was not legislated and the rest. Later it was put into Gazette, and they commenced the recovery of the assets. And to further prove the government right, EFCC is investigating Rocha Sokorocha regarding, money laundering and all of that, which EFCC will later come out.
Well,
now,
Mr. Bwala,
he made
just a moment.
A good point that we need to also clear to the Nigerian people.
Okay, you can do that quickly.
Allow me to
yes, please,
make that?
please
It's very
do that.
important.
Please go ahead.
Now, he said, I've been mentioning Rocha Sokorocha. Rocha Sokorocha is not about Rocha Sokorocha. If you look at the facts, the first person to address the press and tell the world he was abducted was Rocha Sokorocha. All of the allegations that you see in the media space were pushed by Rocha Sokorocha. And it is Rocha Sokorocha who wants to impose him in the state as the governor. He looks like a very gentleman from the way I'm looking at him. But you see, sometimes influence can change character of individuals. The reason why Rocha Sokorocha has to be a factor in the conversation is because you follow the lead and follow the facts. And where the fact leads to somebody who is believed to be the perpetrator of all of these, problems, you cannot have a conclusive conversation without stating those facts. And it stemmed, like I told you, from the investigation and recovery of assets allegedly misappropriated by his administration back to the government of Imo, which is the reason why Imo has now become a place that cannot be governed.
Well, gentlemen, we have less than 5 minutes to round up this conversation, and let me just say that we'll try to see what we can do with all the unanswered questions. But Mr. Nwosu, I asked about the picture which Mr. Bwala referenced about a certain individual, and I'd like you to take a look at this picture and tell us what you think about is that you? Do you know that individual next to you who is said to be a suspect in this ongoing investigation? So what is your response on this?
Okay, the individual there was part of those individuals that was given amnesty. And where you see there is government house. And this individual are part of those, the part of the people that were given amnesty. And this individual you're looking at there now is an appointee of Hope Uzodinma. He's an essay to the commissioner for ISOPADEC right now. The person you're looking at there is an appointee of government of Imo State. So when you look at that background of that picture, this is government house. And some of these boys were given amnesty when Owele Rocha Sokorocha was the governor. And when you look at the people now are being appointee of the government, you now ask yourself, you are working for government, government employed you, and now the same government took these boys and asked them to mention Uche Nwosu. And again, when you talk about the issue of Owele Rocha Sokorocha talking, I'm his in-law. He's my father-in-law. You cannot have your daughter married to somebody and you see that person about to kill, and you keep quiet. So I don't see that Owele Rocha Sokorocha will keep quiet when he sees his son-in-law abducted and was about to kill. It's not a matter of property. For long, that issue of property has been going on. And besides, these matters are in court, and some of them have judgment. And even with the judgment on some of this property, not obeying court judgment, the same governor went ahead to implement his findings. When there are judgments, you can't have judgment on a particular issue and you still go ahead to make some implementation. And most of these matters are in court. So it is not about the seizure of property. We're talking about my life. We are talking about people that came to kill me in my church when I am already inside the church for the burial of my mom.
So just to be clear,
people need to ask, who are these people that came to the church and who paid for this private jet that took me all the way from Enugu to Abuja. I know that the IG of police did not do that. I know that the flight I entered was not a police flight or was not even a police helicopter. So these are the things you ask yourself. Has the governor now turned to the IG or the chief security officer of the country to arrest, to implicate?
We're winding down now
to
on
even
this.
Abduct. So these are the things we need to ask him.
We're winding down quickly, but just to be clear, you're saying that you've not been in contact with that individual which we saw you with in the picture in recent times. Am I right?
I challenged them to ask the individual again, which I know, the police authority, they've asked him several times, and the result I got was that I don't have anything to do with them.
All right.
So I challenge whoever that is putting this to go back, and I challenge them to ask this individual whether he has seen we have contact after that amnesty, whether they have had contact with Uche Nwosu. That picture you are looking at there is office of the chief of staff. This is when I was still the chief of staff.
Okay. Mr. Bwala.
So these individuals are appointee of the governor.
Well, Mr. Bwala, let's take that allegation to you. Mr. Nwosu says that particular individual in the picture is now an appointee of the governor. How do you respond?
Well, I do not know if he's an appointee of the governor, but let me give you a picture. If FBI arrests a criminal suspect and decide that through this criminal suspect they will get facts that will lead to detailed investigation and arrest, they can enter an unofficial plea bargain with the person. They will say, we'll give you protective custody, we'll give you this, we'll give that, in exchange for all information that is necessary for us to unravel that. So circumstances can exist like that. Secondly, with respect to the private jet, Uche Nwosu was a candidate running for governorship. The alleged offense threatened the peace of the state. If an arrest like that is made on the order and to be taken to Abuja, I don't know whether the government of Imo provided the private jet, but even if they do, when an arrest of somebody who is alleged to be bringing instability in that state is made, the government of Imo can provide the resources to move him to Abuja. Then secondly, if you hear the account of Governor Rochas Okorocha, he said he called the Commissioner of Police. Commissioner of Police confirmed to him that Uche Nwosu was arrested by the police, but that it's based on order from Abuja. You have also heard the account of Uche Nwosu, who said when eventually he got to the IG of police, the IG of police said, I will intervene. But guess what he said? He said the IG of police asked that he be taken so he can write his statement. Those who know law enforcement and law, they know that when a person is said to be taken to write a statement, that person is a criminal suspect. So from the facts available from both the governor and his son-in-law, it is succinctly clear that Commissioner of Police in Imo was aware and IG of Police was aware. And right now, Uche Nwosu is being investigated. This is the law. Take away the sentiment and then let's move forward from there. But from the party point of view, I am concerned that for us to be able to find inroad in the southeast, the two states that we have, Ebonyi, that is relatively peaceful, and Imo, must demonstrate that APC is a marketable party.
Well, Mr. Bwala, we have to run now.
Okorocha is alleged to be contesting for president. That is not the strategy to move for presidency.
We have to run now. So let me just let Mr. Nwosu have the last word on this one. Is this going to deter you? Because, I mean, there are talks about your ambition, future ambition. Will it deter you from your future ambition, either in the party or elsewhere? If you can do that in 30 seconds.
I think this had made me stronger as a politician. I'm a member of the party. We supported President Muhammad Buhari, and we are still supporting President Muhammad Buhari. It cannot stop me from doing what I want to do in future. But let me state clearly that in Imo State, Owele Rochas Okorocha was the governor of Imo State for 8 years. There was no problem. Owele Rochas Okorocha was a founding father and is still a founding father of this party. He brought APC to Southeast. Even when people were castigating him, calling him Okorausa, we won. Even when people were saying Owele Rochas Okorocha has brought Islamic Party to Southeast, we insisted and made sure we won. So the issue of party and this thing does not arise. What I want to say finally is that my life is a threat. I want to call on IG to please get to the roots of this incident. And those policemen that came from the government house, they have a unit inside the government house. Their duty is to abduct and then abduct individuals.
Well,
and then the next thing you hear is that that person cannot be found anywhere. So the IG, please, I beg the IG,
Nwosu,
in the
we're
name
totally
of God,
out of time.
Please make sure that we handle this matter.
Well, we have to run now, gentlemen. Mr. Uche Nwosu, former Imo governorship candidate, as well as Mr. Daniel Bwala, legal practitioner, speaking on behalf of the Imo State government. We'd like to thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on the program tonight. Thank you again. Well, that's our program for tonight, everyone. Thank you for watching. I'm Kayode Okikelu. Good night.